Here's Brody Brazil.
Looking back across the last several years, pretty easy to see that whether it was team defense or whether it was goaltending alone, or honestly, it was probably the combination of both, across the last 3 years, this is the area where the team has depleted most. And we can talk about scoring, and we'll talk about the power play definitely here in just a second. But defense is the one thing, unlike offense and unlike scoring, defense should not slump. It's fine if your offense slumps. Every team has it. Every team gets snake bit. Every team has a couple players that go through it. Every team has games and periods where they just cannot find the back of the net, and the chances are there, the power plays are there, and they just can't do it. But defense should not slump. Now, they have a fresh slate in the crease. I was scared to hear about Adin Hill the other day, had to come off the ice during practice, apparently got hit with a puck in the wrist. And apparently things are going to be fine, still on target. I would estimate he's probably the guy for opening night, and I'm not saying that James Reimer makes this an easy conversation or decision. It's great to have the veteran presence of James Reimer back in San Jose. We only knew him for a brief period of time in 26, right before the trade deadline. He was the backup for Martin Jones. He was kind of the safety net, the parachute, if you will. Wasn't needed all the way to the Stanley Cup final, but it was a great security to have him kind of around and if need be. By the way, James Reimer, I didn't know this, kind of like me, a total aviation geek. Apparently during the bubble playoffs of 2020, he took a flight sim like control wheel, like a control yoke for an airplane. He took that with him into the bubble so that he could play flight sim. We got to talk about this. We got to do something with James Reimer on that. Anyway, back to hockey. I digress. To have those two alone, I like the idea of a fresh slate. Best of luck to Devin Dubnyk. I mean, even going back now to Aaron Dell and obviously to Martin Jones in Philadelphia. I think all three of them are capable absolutely in what they do next. But sometimes the team just needs fresh blood and a new look. Because this combination, and I firmly believe, if you go back to 18-19 and kind of the start of this into 19-20, the start of this was team defense not making goalies look good. It's my last point here. Odd man rushes and net front chances and situations where the goalies were hung out to dry. It's one thing to ask your goalie to make 5 incredible stops a night. Hopefully they make at least 4. But when you're asking them to make 7 to 9 to double-digit amazing saves because, well, the other team got a great scoring chance, or, you had a turnover that instantly came back on you. It's a 3-on-1, 2-on-none. Like, what do you expect to happen? But I'll be honest, I really feel like last season, the transition of problems went from team defense, which kind of still existed, and it bled into the goaltending, and all of a sudden, Dubnyk started strong, maybe didn't finish in the same respect, and Martin Jones honestly, it just really got away. It completely got away from him in a short season, and so like I said, I'm glad that everybody has moved on. I'm glad for that. And one last thing, when I'm talking here about team defense, important to remember that we're not just talking about the defensemen. This is not just a blue line issue. Team defense literally means the entire team. It means forwards on their assignments. It means being responsible about turnovers, and when they happen, you're prepared to play instantly some defense. I know team defense has the word defense, which is similar to defenseman in it, but I just want to be very clear. What I think we've all seen is a breakdown from the entire team, all the skaters on the ice, and it's that skater-goalie relationship. I'll also throw this in there. It's similar to baseball in that pitchers have an ERA, an earned run average. Well, that's nice because it doesn't factor in if your shortstop makes an error and 2 or 3 runs score because of it. That does not go on the pitcher's ERA. But for a goalie, the save percentage and the goals against, they are reflective only if the goalie stopped the puck or how many got behind them in a given 60 minutes. And so the issue kind of here is that it doesn't tell you the full story of, well, yeah, they got beat, but three players in front of them who should have been the first, second, and third lines of defense, they also got beat too. I'm not saying it's misleading for goalies, and I know there are other, team stats, but what everybody looks at for the goalies are save percentage and goals against. Those are individual stats, but they are composed in a team effort. And so two or fewer, right? Like we got to get back to a little two or fewer conversation here. That happens way not often enough. It's not two or less. Come on, we found that out a couple years ago. Two or fewer. When the Sharks allow two or fewer goals, they pretty much win, 77 out of 78 times in a row, something like that. This to me is the main recipe. Like I said, we can talk power play in a second. We can talk about team chemistry. We can talk about veteran depth and presence and a third and fourth line, all of that stuff. Absolutely. But it's got to start with defense, and in tandem with that, goaltending has to be equally up to par.